One day I was walking around one of the 3 physical game stores left in Finland looking over the contents of their greatest shelves, and then decided that I should probably check out the games section too whilst I'm here, where I saw something that caught my attention. A game with this box art. A cute drawing of 2 people talking with the text "Goodbye World" overlaid on top of it. This got me obviously intrigued, since I love me some good old contrast of happy seeming thing that is actually sad. Why do you think I sound like this? And from this one look at the box art alone, I made the decision to go home and buy it on Steam since it was 4 times less expensive. So join me on my adventure today as we say goodbye to the world. That sounds really bad. Goodbye World is a game created by Isolation Studio, where we play as, or more so experience the life of Fujika Kanii, your average indie game developer of the isolated and introverted but okay with that who only has one friend that practically forced themselves into their life variety. This one friend's name is Kumade, and for the entirety of the game we will be exploring the friendship of these 2 characters. But before we get into all that, we first must be edgy.
Some fools in the world hide how they truly feel. They think that if they tell the truth, people would think they're lame, or maybe think they're crazy. And they can't stand that, so they lie. But because they're not very smart, they let the truth slip in places people would notice. That, to me, is one of the lamest things anyone could do.
This monologue transitions us into the first scene of the game, which opens up with Kanii playing a game on her non-specific handheld gaming console that we get to control. It's a fun enough pixel art game where you play as what I assume to be a mouse platforming your way through levels using blocks you can find and break inside the levels themselves to build up platforms to climb on. And I hate to spoil things to you, but this is the only actual gameplay we have in this game since most of our time is spent in the cutscenes experiencing the story. After the first stage of the game has been beaten, we start up the scene properly, as it is shown how Kanii has been playing her game during a student counseling meeting, where they've tried to discuss the matter of Kanii not being able to work on a school-mandated game dev project with the artist assigned to her, due to her partner having a work ethic and personality that screams, "Exposure is a valid form of payment to everyone but myself." They argue for a little while, not getting anywhere with their discussion, when suddenly...
Excuse me. I came to hand in my assignment.
Kumade enters. She's asked to wait a moment so the current bickering can be resolved, but can't help overhearing the conversation of the girls and jumps in very abruptly to ask if she could switch places with Miss Definitely Doesn't Believe Anime is Real Art as Kanii's artist for this project. The 2 of them think of this offer for less than a millisecond before agreeing to try switching up partners, with Miss You Don't Need Any More Metaphors, you already know that she's annoying, going as far as to say that anything would be better than Kanii. And with this sudden switch up, the first scene concludes. Already, I must say that I love the general style of this game. It is the definition of the word cozy, with the blurry effects, letterboxing, and detailed pixel art creating a very comfy and warm feeling to the game's environment, and it also works in a similar way to the box art of the game, creating a fun contrast between the game's presentation and actual content. But we'll get there soon enough. The second scene begins yet again with Kanii playing her game. And real quick, I'm just gonna say that in between every scene we get to play more of this game. However, it doesn't have that much significance currently when it comes to the story, merely working as a bridge between the cutscenes, so I'll ignore it for now. Just know that it happens in between every scene. The second scene places us in the current day of the game a few years after the first scene, and shows how the girls have started pursuing game development as a career. But things don't seem to be going that well, since both of them have had to get part-time jobs to sustain themselves. And Kanii just cannot seem to hold down any job she gets, constantly getting fired for never wanting to focus on anything apart from making games. The scene itself has her getting yelled at by an absolutely horrible boss who constantly berates Kanii for not doing anything and makes her have a mini panic/anxiety attack in the middle of the scene. Visualized as a black void and a spotlight lighting up the most rational cat I've seen in my life, trying to calm her down as a visualization of her coping mechanisms for high-stress situations like this. After calming herself down, she promptly tells the store owner to go suck it, quitting on the spot and heading back into the apartment, where she now has to tell the bad yet not surprising news to Kumade, who she lives with nowadays. Kanii getting fired seemingly isn't a new thing to either of the two, but considering their terrible money situation currently, nobody's particularly happy about the fact either. Glossing over this awkward topic, they move on to discussing their latest game. Kanii's not happy with the direction their game is going in, as she thinks that their current story/gameplay concept of save princess from evil creature through platforming isn't meaningful, unique, or selling enough for a mainstream audience.
Nowadays, who'd want to save a princess from a demon lord?
Then what do you suggest?
For example, having the protagonist die halfway unexpectedly, or having a plot twist somewhere, or using metafictional ideas. We just need something like that to get people talking about it.
All in all, she wants to start completely over. The want for a mainstream appealing game that'd make them money is right now the only thing on Kanii's mind when it comes to making games, though this was apparently not the case before. Kumade clearly doesn't like this new mindset of Kanii's, but doesn't try to discuss it any further, as the scene ends with neither of them coming to any sort of conclusion about anything apart from currently things suck, as the two just exist in the same space, not saying anything to each other, sensing that some kind of bubble is about to burst. The next scene has us flash back, because no story exists without one, to 4 years ago, to the beginning of the girls' friendship, as we see them talking in a cafe. Just for the sake of conversation, Kumade asks Kanii why she creates games in the first place, since she seems so adamant about it, to which Kanii doesn't really give a proper answer. She just dilly-dallies around the concept of making it her job in the future with no true emotion behind her words. This is in stark contrast to Kumade, who has much clearer feelings when it comes to why she makes art, saying she does it to invoke feelings in people through an art form she's good at and enjoys, which just so happens to be drawing. The mere concept of having somebody's facial expression change to something they rarely show because of her art is the greatest thing to her. This gives us a slightly closer look into the minds of these two. Both of them are passionate about their respective crafts, but whilst Kanii's confidence in this passion is dwindling due to the reality that it's going to be very hard to make it work as a job, Kumade is completely okay with keeping her art a hobby, leading to her to be able to think about the more fun sides of things and keep her passion alive easier. We leave this memory to get back to the tenseness of the current moment, where it's revealed that Kumade has been offered a full-time job at the cafe she works at. Well, she'd been offered the job many times by now, however, she denied it every time due to wanting to focus mostly on making games. But because of her and Kanii's bad monetary and creative situation, she's finally decided to accept the job. Kanii is visibly, well, textually unhappy about this sudden shift, as she starts asking Kumade if she's really sure about this decision, because if she takes this job, she won't have time to make games anymore. To which Kumade responds,
Do you remember the promise we made?
What promise?
I guess you don't. my job at the cafe, they let me illustrate the menu and create boards for special deals. And the customers that come by tell me my designs are cool or that my pictures are pretty. They just look genuinely pleased with my work. And that's enough for me. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for everything. It was fun.
As Kumade leaves, Kanii is left alone in the apartment with nothing but her own thoughts. She's clearly been having trouble recently staying passionate with her craft, with even the game that she's been playing throughout the entire journey so far becoming dull in her eyes, as from an objective standpoint it is nothing short of okay. And now with Kumade out of the picture, things are not about to get any better. You wake up to darkness and fuzz. Kanii picks up her console to play a few rounds of Subway Surfers blocks, but after she puts the game away, the haze I initially thought to have been created by morning tiredness doesn't go away. It's as if Kanii isn't even willing to open her eyes to the world. She reminisces about her and Kumade's first project together that kickstarted their whole friendship. Turns out that project got them first place in a competition, and Kanii had been chosen to give the winner's speech. We flash back to moments right before this speech, where Kanii is very nervous about it all. Kumade comforts her by saying that whenever she's nervous, she thinks about things she likes, and suggests Kanii do that too with something she likes, which in this case happens to be cats. She takes a few deep breaths, goes up on stage, and the speech goes well. The prize is won, and all seems to be good. But thinking back to it, the only thing Kanii can think about is how most praises the game got were towards Kumade's pixel art, with Kanii's programming barely even being mentioned. Since the very beginning, Kumade has been a gigantic reason for even the most mild successes in Kanii's life, and she had just lost her, alongside her last bits of confidence. What the hell was she going to do now? Some time passes as Kanii gets out of her sulking phase and really starts thinking about her current situation. Clearly, it's time for a change. She's been thinking of the mainstream appeal side of things far too much, taking the corporate route too hard and trying to appeal to the masses whilst losing touch with why she really wants to make games. So instead of getting stuck in her ways of thinking, she attempts to break free of this mindset by making a game she truly wants to make. And whilst making this game is a struggle for her, being the first solo project she's done in a while, she manages to finish it and even get it presented to a game distributor she and Kumade had worked with before. Things were finally starting to go well. A major change that she didn't hate was happening. Maybe going solo was a good thing after all.
You're asking if we'd publish this, right? Well, the answer is no.
Despite her efforts, the pitch meeting doesn't go well, as the only proper selling point Kanii has for her game is literal backwards compatibility, which is not a very enticing concept in a world advancing in technology faster than a flood, and her game completely lacking general mass appeal. For one, she'd made a game purely out of the desire to make something she is happy with.
And that would be fine if you were doing this as a hobby. But this is an office. We're a company doing business. If you could make money simply doing what you want, life would be so easy.
To add salt into Kanee's rejection-shaped wound, she gets told that the only reason her and Kumade's games were ever considered by the publishers in the first place was because of Kumade's art and hardly anything else, further strengthening Kanee's thoughts of her games being nothing without Kumade. The publisher tries prying into the reasons for Kumade and Kanee separating and asks if that happened because Kumade saw how Kanee had stopped making games that sell. This leads to the most aggressive reaction from Kanii we've seen so far, as she almost loses her temper, but recesses and shuts down the conversation alongside herself. She couldn't say it in front of the distributor, but the reason for Kumade leaving would have never in a million years been making games that don't sell, since she was the only person in Kanee's life who actually respected what she did. We flash back to the moments directly after the girls had won their aforementioned game competition, sitting alongside each other in a train that's peacefully chugging along. Kumade tries to get Kanee to celebrate their victory at least a little bit. However, Kanee humbly retorts, saying there's not much for her to celebrate, since most of what was praised about their game was all Kumade's doing. Kumade tries to cheer her friend up by telling her of how even before their meeting in the student counseling room, she'd wanted to make games with Kanee due to playing one of her previous games she'd made for another competition. She saw the genuine passion Kanee had put behind her game and wanted to work with somebody that dedicated to what they wanted to do, so sought Kanee out to make games with her. This story seems to lift the spirits of Kanee at least a little bit, as after the story's been told, she musters up the courage to speak about a certain thing to Kumade.
I think I won't get a full-time job after I graduate.
So turns out that Kanee's finally discovered the concept of indie game development, and wants to try making that work for herself since a corporate environment is the last place she ever wants to be in. It feels like the only way for her to truly achieve her goals. However, she does not want to do it by herself.
I was thinking it was fun working with you, so if you're up for it, would you like to join me?
Silence falls between the two as the open doors of the train now give Kumade a choice. Leave this train and venture out on her own, or stay with Kanee and try to make a statistically impossible plan work out.
Sure, let's do it. But can you promise me one thing? It's all fun and games while we're students, but I bet things will be different once this becomes our job. It might become stressful or even overwhelming. So if we can't make games with the passion we feel now, let's not push it and quit.
This was the promise Kanii forgot during the last time the two spoke. She didn't actually forget this promise, but she couldn't say she remembered it in the moment either. She couldn't admit to breaking this promise because then she'd be admitting to the one thing she can't admit to, that making games had become suffocating, exhausting, and something she didn't enjoy at least nearly as much as she did before. That was a thought simply too scary for her to even try accepting. Game development was all she's ever wanted to do in life and the one thing she was good at, right? So how could she possibly be losing passion for it? It was something she couldn't face, so she decided to hide behind a lie. It's a new day. The first thing Kanii does is obviously pick up her console and fail horrifically at the game she's played on repeat for years, definitely because of her own lack of skills and not because the game is temporarily being controlled by a complete dumbass. And the second thing she does is take a deep breath, suck up all her pride, and call Kumade, explaining to her how things are going and the rejection of her newest project. At this point, after all these thoughts and rejection, she wants some confirmation, some sense of clarity about if she's completely lost herself and the ability to make game. So asks Kumade to come play her rejected game. She's the only one to have ever enjoyed them after all. After a brief pause, Kumade agrees and the two plan out an evening of first having lunch and then discussing the game. The meeting is set for Tuesday, the 12th of July. At the beginning of the next scene, we get shown Kanee's mind hopping through various memories of her and Kumade doing things together, from their friendship's beginning to now, as Kanee realizes just how much Kumade helped her in becoming a better person. And even though there's no verbal communication from Kanee in this scene, it's clear that she's glad to be seeing her friend again. Kumade didn't come. She apparently needed to fill in for a part-timer at her job and had to bail on their plans. This cements the fact in Kanee's head that she has actually lost an important person from her life to something she cannot bring herself to be a part of willingly because of her own actions. The cat appears yet again, but this time not as friendly. It mocks Kanee for everything she's done in her life so far, as every other negative experience from the past few years starts flooding into her mind. As these negative memories and thoughts rapidly flash before her eyes, the spotlight finally calms down, landing on Kumade.
You know, in my job at the cafe, they let me illustrate the menu and create boards for special deals. And that's enough for me. That's all I've got to say.
The spotlight turns off and on one more time to show an empty stage, only to fade back out into the real world, and no, god damn, no! That open balcony door is not signaling what I think it is signaling. I've gently opened the door once in my life already, and I am not willing to go through it again! The next scene has Kumade coming to Kanee's apartment a day after they were supposed to meet up, to apologize for bailing on her and also to check up on her, since she's not answering her phone. To Kumade's surprise, nobody seems to be hello. For the first time in the game, you get to actually move within one of these cutscenes, as Kumade walking around the apartment, reminiscing about the various things she and Kanee had gotten up to in this singular space, until she gets to the balcony door. She goes outside, looks down, and simply says,
Kanii?
before cutting to what I assume to be later in the day, as Kumade finally picks up Kanee's game console and starts playing her game like she'd promised. She plays through the entire game, supposedly, even though she just boots up the console and it's at the end. And once getting to the end, sees a line of messages awaiting her. These text boxes are Kanee's way of opening up to her friend, talking about how she's honestly been a selfish prick for the past few years, who wanted to prove to everyone that she could make something great and generally accepted as successful, whilst simultaneously not appreciating the one person in her life who actually respected her art for what it was and gave her a chance. This realization unfortunately came to her a bit too late, as it was Kumade leaving that got her to finally understand. However, not all was bad. Hey, editing superior here. So I cut out a line from this part of the video in the edit because in the moment when I was writing it and recording it, God, it sounded so good, it was so emotional. And then when I listened back to it, God, that was bad, ew, that was very cringe. I did not like the way I worded my sentences at all. So I'm gonna word it differently here right now as I'm editing. So basically, Kumade leaving forced Kanee to try game making one more time, but as a solo project, and since she had nothing left to lose, she was like, fuck it, I'ma just make a game that's fun for me and me only. I'm not trying to appeal to the masses like I've done before, I'm just trying to do something that's fun for me. And that managed to rekindle her love for game making, and she also managed to rekindle a feeling she thought she'd never feel again, which is the fun of creation. So that's cool. But she knew that this newly refurbished feeling wouldn't last too long without help. So as her one last plea to try making something truly great whilst enjoying the process, Kanii asks Kumade if they could try again. No, wait, this was supposed to be a happy ending. What? You did not just...
Why is it made like I died in the end?
You asked for it. Something with a plot twist that has metafictional ideas and the protagonist dies unexpectedly. A story like this would get people talking, right?
And that is the actual ending of Goodbye World. I cannot believe they titled their game that just for the sake of trolling. Hey, it's Editing Superior again. Did you miss me? So, I have a bit of an embarrassing thing to admit here at the end, which is that, I just didn't do my research on this part of the game. For the entire time that I was writing the script, I thought that this game was made by Kanii and Kumade, who were real people in the real world, like our world, when in reality, they're characters in their real world. Like, yeah, they made the game Goodbye World, but in their own world. They are fictional characters. But for the rest of this video, I talk about this game like they were real people from our actual planet, which is dumb, and I should have done at least like 1% research on that, but I didn't. So, yeah, apologies for that. Don't mind that. It might be a bit confusing, but yeah, I know they're not real people now, but I did not know it until I was editing, because I am big dumb brain boy. Okay, enjoy the rest of the video where I just talk about how good this game was for like 5 minutes. Hoo-wee! What a story! What a game! At the beginning, I was particularly surprised by how real the dialogue and actions of the characters felt for a video game about a topic that has seen many fall into cliches and tropey characters, burnout. But when it's revealed at the end that the entire story was based on true events, everything started to make a lot more sense. The reason the people felt more like people than usual was because the people were actually people. Wow! And this added bit of realism makes the story hit hard for me and probably for some of you as well. Being a person who wants to independently create for a living, the thought of something like this happening to me has always lingered in the back of my head. That if I get to do what I want to do as a job, I lose myself in the job aspect of it all. Obviously, you have to take into account the business side of things when thinking about a passion as a future career, and that naturally requires you to take your hobby a bit more seriously, or at least look at things from a slightly different perspective. However, getting too involved in it can lead to the feelings and problems you see Kanii go through within Goodbye World, making yourself look at everything you do from an objective angle, and in general looking for ways to make things work out for you instead of trying to enjoy what you're doing. Just a note in the middle here, this kind of business-first approach does work for some people, and a lot of these people seem to enjoy that process. I'm not shunning this way of doing things, I'm just saying it's absolutely not for me. And this type of thinking can lead to significant burnout, which is the scariest shit ever when you first experience it. But as scary as it is, as this game shows, it's not impossible to overcome. Throughout the entire game, Kanii has had one singular goal that's stuck with her no matter what. To make a game she's truly happy with. this goal does not fade away alongside her initial passion for independent game making. It is stuck in her head and will not let go. This need to make a game she's happy with no matter what finally comes to fruition after Kumade leaves and Kanii has no choice but to give it one more honest chance. And though it is not a success from an objective point of view, it changes Kanee's perspective on things, since now she's been able to rekindle a feeling that had been gone for a long time. Fun. She had fun making a game. She finally felt like she wanted to do something simply because. She finally felt like her old self again. This sparks her to ask Kumade to try making games together again, because now she could honestly say that she did not break their promise. She hadn't lost the passion for making games. She just needed a bit of a boost to figure it out. A boost in the form of everything she cares about threatening to go away, yes, but it doesn't have to be that dramatic in real life. You can just chill out for a few weeks and let the emotions happen, and try again, you know. The story of this game is quite simple at the end of the day. However, it's been done really well. Everything the narrative of this game is going for is most definitely enhanced by just how damn cozy the game feels with its visuals, the filters you can add on top of the visuals, the very calm pacing, the chill music, and the courage to actually let the player sit in silence for a while taking in what's happened, all giving the game a very real and immersive atmosphere. And all that coziness and warmth is contrasted really nicely with the cold hard truths of the creative world. I swear, when I first saw that balcony door open at the end of the game, my heart sank through my body into the core of the earth. I have to admit that all the build up to this moment was really well done and depicted the thoughts of a creative in denial accurately, but also fucking ow, that was mean. I'm not gonna lie, I was trying to come up with something negative to say about this game, but the only bad things I could come up with are that the dialogue was a bit awkward at times, and the only actual gameplay of the game in the middle of the cutscenes wasn't very good. I get that the game being really basic was the point. It was supposed to be very simple and archaic. But it did throw off the pacing occasionally when my dumbass would get stuck on a level for 15 minutes and then after giving up realizing I was supposed to be sad the entire time. So yeah, other than that, I've got no complaints. Goodbye World is somehow a feel-good and a feel-bad game at the same time, that manages to not only find the relatable weak spots of creatives, but take those weak spots out to the back alley and repeatedly punch them over the course of an incredibly sincere story. Thank you for watching. Please go buy the game and support these developers, since Goodbye World and its devs have not gotten nearly the recognition they deserve. Seriously, nobody knows about this game and I feel like people really should. Thank you to the wonderful voice actresses of this video. And a game theory at the end here. What if all along this game was about Toby Fox, and this is just the story of how he made Undertale?